Hello and welcome to this video on how I draw a watercolour sketch. This is a slightly different video format for me, so I would be really pleased to hear in the comments what you think, and if you enjoy it, please consider subscribing. Now today I am going to show you how I do these watercolour sketches. Most of these are actually done out and about, but obviously I am in the studio today working from a picture that I took out on a walk. But it's the same principle that I apply if I'm out and about. The slight difference is that obviously I've got a frame around my reference, whereas if you're out and about you've got the whole vista and you need to kind of pick and choose what focal points that you want to paint. I'll quickly go through my materials. I've got a video which I'm going to link with what watercolour sketch pad this is. I'm using a Faber-Castell fine line small one, no pencil. And then I've got this watercolour kit that I take out and about with me as well, with a watercolour pen. I do need to get some more of these though, and my trusty piece of kitchen paper. I think I'm going to be focusing on these two silver birch trees here and then put a little bit of the wall in the background. So like I say, I don't tend to use pencil for this, but you can if you want to, and then kind of go over. What I will say about the pen is it does need to be waterproof, because we're going to do the pen first and then paint over it. So obviously you don't want black splotches all over the place with ink that's running. So I'm just going to take this tree here. If my pen, I checked these pens, I had two and I thought that this one worked. So it's not an entirely straight tree, so I'm just gonna sketch that in there, and then a little bit away from it I'm going to do this one. This is the only trouble I find with fine line pens, especially these ones, is that you tend to draw with them in a certain way, and then you can only kind of get the big mark from them in one particular way. So for me in this one it's like almost vertical to the page, perpendicular to the page. So I'm just going to go back over those. And then I need to put the line of the wall in here. So I'm going to take that. I'm not measuring anything. I mean, I'm fairly good by eye, that just takes practice. But for a sketch, it's kind of shapes and lighting, so I'm not really terribly bothered about whether things are in proportion. Now that line I've kind of broken up a little bit because these bits of vegetation go over them. We're just doing suggestions of things. So I'm just going to do some of these leaves. You can see these ones all kind of fairly well defined. So let's put these in here. These ones in the back here. I'm hoping the way I'm holding my pen you can still see. At this stage on these ones it is just literally lines, and then I'm hoping that by putting the colour on it's going to pick up the suggestion that they are ferns coming out of the wall. So these are very, very loose over here. You've kind of got a clump here of them. And then what I'm going to do, obviously you can see this, the dark bits here and here and in here. So with the pen, I'm just going to do a little bit of shadow. And then some shadow along here. Then I'm going to do a hint of some of these bricks in here as well. So just quite loose, nothing too straight. Let's put a little bit down there. A couple more ferns coming out of here. Normally these sketches are quite quick because usually I'm on a walk with husband, son, so they, unless we can find a bench and they're occupied, they never really like to linger for very long. So it is usually a case of getting kind of the main features and the darks and the lights. Let's do this one here as well. And then we have got some twiggy bits coming up here. There's a tree coming out of there. All the branches. And then for this bit, I'm not going to define all these leaves, I'm just going to do kind of a line of where they are. And then for the texture on the tree, the birch trees, just going to put the little kind of scars, which silver birch trees are kind of renowned for. So hopefully you will be able to tell that these are silver birch trees. and then the moss on this bit here. Just going to do a bit of a detail bit on there, and then I think we're ready for the paint. If you've never used one of these watercolour brush pens before, it's got a little reservoir in here, so you twist that off and you put water in there, which I've already done. So at the minute the tip is dry, but you just need to squeeze it a little bit to make the water come through. There, you can see it coming there, to wet the brush. I do need some more of these because I do tend to find that the green starts staining the brush. And there's a little palette here to mix colours, etc. So I'm going to do the background bit here, which is kind of like browny, kind of beigey colour. I think I might need a bit more of a... When you're out and about, you can either take an extra piece of watercolour paper to test your colours, or not test your colours at all, or just do a little bit on the edge like that. I do sometimes, sometimes I don't. So my thing is, I just want to fill the whole of the background here, so I'm just going to put the paint on. On my sketches, I'm not really fussed about going over the lines. So if as a child on your colouring in pages you always went over the lines, you're allowed to do it. Then I'm going to get a little bit more of the darker brown. I think this is, oh, it's like a blackish colour, that's fine. And then just do a few kind of darker texture bits while it's still wet. This is the advantage of working inside as well, is that your paint doesn't dry too quickly. If you're outside and it's sunny or warm or windy, then it can dry quite quickly. So if you want wet and wet, you have to work quite quickly. This bit is the same, a similar colour, so I'm going to do that. If you get too much paint, then squeeze some water through again. To get the impression of the leaves on here, I'm just going to dot about. Because that's wet and wet, it's kind of seeping in a little bit, so I'll probably come back over this once that's dried a little bit. If you want to change colours, I would suggest bringing some water through the nib and drying it on here. Now in my photo, the birch trees are a slightly pinky colour. Obviously we've got the white trunk, but there's like a darker bit of pink, of a pinky colour. So I'm going to go for this colour here. And again, I'm just kind of looking at lights and darks. So this side of the trunk is almost white. That is the pinky colour. Not really looking for many details. Obviously this is going to take maybe, what, 20 minutes or something. If you want details, you would spend a lot longer. And then I'm just gonna see if I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of bluey colour to get some shadows. But not losing that pink. Next, let's tackle the wall. So we've got greenish, blackish, darkish colour. Start with that bit there. Bear in mind that the greens are going to have to go over this, so do try and just avoid those bits, but you don't have to go right to the edge. It is just a sketch. Slightly squeeze your brush sometimes to get the paint through. I'm going to go over that bit. Starting to go a bit too much of the brown in. Squeezing there just to get some more of the pigment out. But again, it's just doing this to cover the paper. Oh, I think that's supposed to be ferns. Then I want a few shadows. Oh, that's very dark. I'm just going to mix it up with all of the colours that are on there. So obviously we've got the shadow under that bit of the wall. I'm not bothered about blending any of this in either, that's fine. Some shadow here, put some more in that bit there. Then I'm going to add a little bit of just the green onto a few bits of kind of rock as well. And then the greens are always tricky to decide what kind of green. But these ferns are quite bright, so I think I'm gonna go with something like that. Again, not really fussed about whether it's going over the edge of the lines. You just kind of want that lush green feeling. There was some above there as well. I go over some of that with slightly different shade, so it's not too dimensional. Oh, there was a bit there, wasn't there? I'm gonna add a tiny bit of this, keep squeezing into the more vibrant one for the moss on here. Well, that's looking fairly similar. Oh, and I almost forgot these green leaves at the front. I'm literally just blocking in colour here. I'm just going to do a slight wash of the black over there because that is just standing out a little bit too much for me. It's a bit too bright. But you don't want to be putting too much paint on top of paint. And then we need to just put these in here. Oh, I've forgotten a green bit there. I tend to go for the light colours. Try and go for the light colours first, because once you put a dark colour on your brush, it darkens and muddies your brush. Okay, gonna go back, now that this bit's dry, back and just put some little details of shadows of the leaves. And with a tiny bit of the brown. Not a lot of water on that, so that's quite dark. Just get a little bit of texture in there. And then just darken this area a little bit. Just take a little bit of practice of how much paint to get on your brush to make it darker and lighter. It's quite dark on these bits. And trying to make the dark make the light of the so that the birch trees stand out. Make this darker as well along here. And there you have it. I think that's the finished sketch. You can sign it, you can put where it is. This was the Derwent Walk. And then I normally put a date on this. I'm going to put from a photo. Today's date is the 11th of 12th, 20. And there you have the finished sketch next to the picture. I do hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you thought of it, because as I say, that is a slightly different format for me to work with. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing for more content and give me a thumbs up, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye!